What is going on? Welcome to Dharma Time here on WPSA99.com, Streaming Solutions. I'm your host, the Dharma Guy, here with the Dope Doctor as well, producer, friend, co-host, companion. You know, he hates that word. Welcome. Today's Tuesday, June 5th. Painstakingly hot outside for me. I still, gosh, man. You know, everybody was complaining about all that rainy weather the other day. I was in, like, heaven. I loved all the rainy weather. It was fantastic. However, that's not why you tuned in, is it? You tuned in to listen to some Dharma Time. So I'm going to go ahead and let's just jump right into it. First of all, we had some great guests here earlier. Hopefully we'll have some good footage to put up at another time. Having said that, for those of you who follow my social media, thank you. And for those of you who don't, why not? But I put a poll up the other day. And my poll, let me go ahead and pull up let me pull up the poll.
Pull up the poll.
I'm going to pull up the poll.
Pull up the poll, Trinity.
I like that. So anyways, the poll question that I put on there, and as I scroll down on my Facebook feed here for a second, and I pass, I have to mention as a 49er, Dwight Clark. That sucks, man. Dwight Clark is gone from ALS. He was the catch. I did post that the other day. It's sad to see him go, man. It was a good player. But all right, so the poll question was, in a polarized society, what unites us more, science or religion, right? And as of at the moment, it is 68% science, 32% religion. So numbers changed slightly. They were 70-30 all the way up to about an hour ago.
Right.
So that was the poll question. And today's show topic, of course, is science versus religion, right? And that's a broad topic for sure. Right. I think we have a certain direction we're going to try to take it in today. Right. Having said that, there's numerous ways we could take it, and I'm sure we'll cover as many as we can. But, you know, the main reason why I think that we put this up, and this is, I believe this is a collective one. I mean, I usually try to come up with the topics, but you and I converse about them. Oh, there comes the glasses. You're so cool, man. You got to wear your sunglasses inside.
No, my head, the head is hurting. And
your future's so bright.
I actually have photophobia. You
have photophobia? I don't know what that is.
It's a sensitivity to light.
Ah, okay.
And so when my head is hurting, light, especially these kind of lights, it's like someone screaming at me.
I think my wife has that, but only during migraines. Like during migraines, light and stuff like that just is not her friend.
It's when I have the headaches, it's worse.
Right. All right. So I guess let's touch on why. Right. Why we're even talking about this. And I think the main reason why, at least for me, anyways, was as I said.
What inspired you, Trinity, to because some of the answers that the people gave are like, are you just trying to anger people or polarize people?
Yeah.
So why did you do this?
A few people felt that way, I believe.
Yeah. So a lot of us are asking why you want to do this. Why'd you want to do this?
Yeah, I think it needs to be discussed, man. I really do. Yeah. I think there's a lot of divisiveness at the moment. I think that
that's a fact.
Yeah, and it's not just here, right? It's not just America. Obviously, this is where we live, so it's
all around the world.
It's most prevalent to us, but there's a lot of elections and things of that nature taking place in different countries, and there's a lot of divisive kind of comments that are driving a lot of those elections, if you will.
Right.
Hey, Bob, thanks for tuning in, brother. But I don't know. I just think it needs to be talked about because right now there's so much anger and there's just so much stuff happening, right?
Right.
Wars, there's immigration, there's of course there's calls of racism and all these other things that are taking place all around the world. And it made me wonder what, if anything, could fix this.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the biggest debates that happen constantly is the religion and the science debate, right? Because you can go, there's a certain population that you can go to and ask them, hey, what's going to solve all this? Where did we go wrong?
Right.
And that particular population is going to say, well, you know, our moral failings. You know, we turned away from God.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel that way. I think a lot of people feel that if we're a more religious society, some of the issues that we're having, we wouldn't be having. And then, of course, there's another group that completely disagrees with that and thinks that, you know, science, sort of, not necessarily chemistry, things of that nature, but science like the mental sciences and learning how to treat one another and stuff like that is the answer. Because a lot of people think that religion can breed intolerance and stuff. And so I think that's a debate that we have to have, man. I mean, being the fact that this is Dharma Time, and spirituality is kind of like my calling card, if you will.
Yeah.
It hasn't always been. There was a time in my life where I was very heavily on one side or the other of this debate, to whereas where
Debate or conversation?
Both. I think it's meant to be a conversation, but it usually turns into be a debate.
Yeah.
And a matter of fact, on my poll, I have to mention there's a gentleman who I don't know if he wants me to say his name, so I won't. But there was somebody commented on
You
there.
can use the first name.
And Dexter is his name. He commented on the poll that I promised him I'd mention it on air, and I have to because it was hilarious.
Okay.
He said the science and religion debate. He said science keeps us alive so we can debate religion or we can argue religion. I thought that was hilarious, man. So Dexter, kudos to you, brother. That was hilarious. I got to give you props on that one. But no, I think so before we get into the quote unquote debate or the conversation, I think it's important to define them, right? Define what we're even talking about. So religion, I think it's relatively an easy definition. I don't know if we're gonna.
I don't know if it's as easy as you think it is.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna. Religion.
So
is,
when you say religion, let me
I'm not gonna pick any
all this up for
one
you.
specific religion though.
Right. When you say religion, are you talking about organized religion?
Yes.
So not spirituality.
Correct.
Let's get that straight.
Correct.
You're not taking the easy way out here.
I'm not. I think that yes, I believe spirituality is the easy way out. I think, having said that, there's a lot of people who combine the two.
Right.
There's a lot of people.
Well,
who
all
feel,
religion has spirituality.
Correct, and I think a lot of people feel that spirituality equals religion. You know, you can't separate the two. I'm not one of those individuals.
Right.
But there's a lot of people out there that do feel that way. Right. And I think that personally, I think they can be separate. I would call myself spiritual, but not religious.
Okay.
In other words, I don't believe in the deity. I'm atheist. I don't believe in the Bible, things of that nature.
Right.
Not to say that I don't see certain value in it, which we'll get into later. But I consider myself spiritual because I walk the path of Buddhism, and to me, that's a philosophy that helps me find peace and things of that nature. Right. So I believe it can be separated, even though a lot of people don't. Okay. But for the purposes of this particular debate, yes, when I say religion, I'm referring to organized religion, not any one specific one. Having said that, I'm much more well versed on Christianity, and that's more prevalent, I believe, here in the States. So I think that's kind of where a lot of my my argument will come from. But it doesn't have to be that one per se.
Right.
So, do you have anything to add to the definition of religion? I mean, it's basically just, to me, is the worship of a deity, following certain dogma, like the commandments. You know, the rules, if you will.
Yeah. So no. All I would add is that religions tend to have a form of leadership. I think they have a following. I think they have a place of worship or a style or ritual worship styles. Even if it's not a place, you create the ritual wherever. And some religions that you may know of or be a part of would be Christianity, Catholicism, which is part of that, or Jewish, Muslim.
We have all the Abrahamic religions, which would include.
Yeah, but see, when you say that, I just well, that's way too cerebral.
And then you have
so break it down. So give us the top 5 religions that you can think of: Hindu, Muslim, Christian. Which includes Baptists and Catholics and
Judaism,
Protestants and all that stuff. Judaism and what else? Even Satan worshippers. You're a religion.
They're out there.
Right. And does this include Scientologists or no?
Wow. I'm not sure if I would call that a religion just yet. I mean, I think that feels more cultish to me.
But the Branch Davidians and yes.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go there.
Okay. The Moonies, yes.
The Moonies. So nice. Right. And then science. Let's go that route. Science, there's a ton of different types of sciences. There's the physical, the biological, the psychological sciences. There's a ton of those ones, and to be honest with you, man, what really started this major debate for me, or what started this show topic, was can you be both scientific and religious, right? And that kind of morphed into this whole what's the answer for our polarization that we have going on,
right?
And so for me, I think that I don't know, man. I've gone through quite a journey of thoughts, man, and I think everybody has, to be honest with you. Yeah. Anybody who I've asked this question, who's taken it seriously, who really seriously wanted to kind of think about it,
right?
It's just not an easy answer for anybody. No. It's a very let me think about that kind of a question, right? And if I'm being honest, my initial response is no, you can't be both scientific and religious. Was my initial thoughts.
Right.
Because to me, I think that they're mutually exclusive in the sense
Okay.
that religion really kind of, the basis of religion is some sort of a faith. You know, there's not a lot of proof, there's faith. And if you have faith, then you can find proof, but if you don't have that faith, you don't consider that same proof, if you will. So for instance, if I'm arguing with somebody who is very religious and into the Bible, they'll tout the Bible as certain proof, but for me, that doesn't constitute proof, I guess.
Are you able to call a hypothesis or faith a hypothesis?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not really sure.
You know, because
It's
science begins with some sort of belief.
Yeah, it begins
Like,
with
I
a guess.
believe it to be true that A equals B.
Right.
Right?
Sure.
But then through the efforts of science, because it's science even before it's proven.
Yeah.
The action of proving it is also science.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the study and research is also science, even though it's not proven yet.
Yeah, absolutely. But
And religions aren't doing that. They are trying to. I mean, I remember when they said they found the ark.
Well, they thought they found the ark. Yeah.
Well, I mean, to some of them, they believe they did.
Sure.
But what I'm saying is, in other words, I think there's a group of people out there that believe that they are actively doing the same thing, and their definition of proof may be different than other people's version of proof.
Yeah, I can see how that would be.
You know,
would be in there.
and for the purposes of this show, I'm just bringing that up because for the purposes of the show, we're making it a little bit more simplistic than that.
We are.
You know,
We are.
so just so there's not that middle argument while we're doing the other
Yeah.
conversation.
Well, and that's the thing about this particular show, man. Is it's you know, just this topic alone.
And that's why I said defining it is not so easy.
No, it's not. And this topic alone, this thought, you know, it the second I start asking this question, you can
Yeah.
almost like feel the proverbial buttholes pucker all around.
Yeah, the
'Cause
polarization.
they're just like, oh, I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
And so I think that
Well, it's personal to some people.
it is.
I think
And-
religion tends to be personal, and science doesn't.
Well, I don't know. There's some people out there who there was somebody who posted on a response to my poll,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they called it scientism.
Yeah, but I think that
Which is
I guess
interesting.
yeah, that is
It's
interesting.
like their own version of
It is.
religion, right? Because there's some people who
But I don't think their feelings get hurt. Is what I'm saying. Like it's not that kind of personal. I don't think science. I don't think. I don't think I've met anyone that is a strong believer in science. That feels like it's a personal attack on them. I think more so that when a person religious wants to argue with them, they just tend to look at the religious person as an idiot or
Yeah.
ill-informed.
yeah, it's very insulting.
Or
I guess, at that
archaic.
point.
But religious people do get insulted, which I think they take it much more personal, at a deeper level, like you're actually offending me, kind of thing.
Once again, I can see both. You know,
so you think someone's offended when someone knocks on their door and asks them to read a pamphlet?
there was a point in my life where yes, I was offended.
You were offended.
Yeah, there was a point in my life where I was like, "Why are you? Leave me alone. Why are you at my door? Get the hell out of here."
Like you think I need saving. I was offended when people thought I needed saving.
Yeah,
But not because of my belief in something different, just the fact that I needed saving.
I guess
that
what-
offended me.
I think what offended me more, if I'm trying to remember, trying to think back of when I was I hate to use the word offended, but irritated. I think.
Okay.
What irritated me was just this idea that, like, I'm not going around knocking on people's door telling them they shouldn't believe.
Okay.
Why are you knocking on my door? Why are you bothering me on a Sunday morning when I'm trying to relax and tell me about something I don't care about? You know, and that was back when I was very anti-theist.
Right,
Not
right.
where I'm at now, but back in my angry days, if you will.
So let's hear how Dharma Time has progressed. Now make the case for religion, and make the case
All
for
right.
religion being,
Well, and that's where I'm at now, right?
Yeah.
Is I'm not religious, you know,
Right.
I'm atheist. However, I've come around, man, where I see a tremendous value in religion. I really do. And I think that there is a case to be made that is what could unite us. Religion itself, not the people within it necessarily, but religion, the concept behind it. Because it does, religion kind of addresses a moral compass. It does address the afterlife. It does address how we should behave, to whereas science doesn't necessarily do that.
Mm-hmm.
It can. But the thing that I've noticed about religion is there's a healing power that religion has that science doesn't.
right.
Science has the obvious healing power of medicine, things of that nature, which I'm sure we'll get to later.
Right.
But the thing that I've noticed religion kind of does better than most other things is hope.
Right.
It provides a certain hope and this concept or this idea that everything's just going to be okay.
Right.
You know, and science doesn't always do that. Science can actually be the opposite sometimes. You know, science can say, you think it's going to be okay. Here's some proof that it's just not.
Right.
You know, and not only that, but religion also does leave room for the impossible.
Mm.
You know, not to trivialize it, but we're obviously both basketball fans.
Mm.
And I think that to make the analogy, if you will, the kind of faith and the hope that religion provides is the same kind of faith and hope that like we both have, that we like to see LeBron maybe win.
Right.
Because right now it's against all odds.
Mm-hmm.
Much better team. But for some reason, you and I both have this idea that we're holding out hope that maybe they can pull it off.
Right.
Right? And I think religion kind of gives that to you. And I think people underestimate how important that is.
Inshallah.
And what?
God willing.
Okay. Yeah, if you say so, brother.
The Muslims know what I'm saying.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Sometimes I like to lick them. But no, I think that...
Hey, don't make fun there, Mr.
No,
Dharma Guy.
No, I got a really good friend
Don't-
who's a Muslim.
Oh, yeah, you have a black friend.
That too.
That was that kind of comment.
But no, I think that I think people underestimate how much faith, the hope that provides, how important that is.
Yeah.
Right. And you know the only thing I can kind of associate it to that I've been in personally was dealing with the medical concerns that I had with the hormonal balances and all this other stuff that was going through.
Right.
The hardest part for me wasn't the physical symptoms.
Mm.
It wasn't the cost or all these other things that are associated. You know what it was
What?
the lack of hope, the lack of thinking this is going to get better. That was the hardest thing for me to deal with, and so for me it was very centralized to just that one thing.
Mm.
But I can't imagine what it would be like to be a person walking around looking at life that way. And so if religion offers that person hope that gets them through the day,
Right.
who am I to tell them not to?
Right.
You know, and I think that's where I think the case to be made for religion is that it provides a moral code for some people. It provides hope for others. It provides strength. I think there's a very real strength that can come from thinking that there's this thing in the sky that's just looking out for you. It's gonna make things better somehow, some way.
And it does provide instant unification.
I
mean, you're instantly unified. I mean, in other words,
yeah, there's a group of other people who believe like you believe.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can find a gathering of your people anywhere,
Absolutely.
and instantly feel unified under that banner.
Yeah. So I think it can unify.
Right.
But I also think it can be very divisive. I think it can be very off-putting. The idea that out of all the hundreds of gods that are out there, mine is right and yours is wrong.
Are you prematurely making the case for science now? Are we off to making the case for
No,
for
but
religion?
I'm discussing both, I guess. But if you want to stay on track, we'll go there. Somebody's got to do it, right?
Trying to keep you on track.
But no, so that would be the case I would make for religion. It's just that it provides a certain level of hope that science doesn't. I really do. I think that people.
But what's the unifying part?
The unifying part is
like why does it unify Trinity? Why do religions unify people?
I think because none of us know. None of us have an answer, and so this idea that this is the answer, and I'm not gonna lie, the religion sounds awesome. You know what I mean? Like I wish I could believe. I wish that for me personally, religion was the answer. I wish that I could look at that stuff and feel hope and inspiration from it, but I don't. But looking at it, it sounds amazing. This idea that if I just behave and act right in my life now and treat people with kindness, then I'm going to go into this amazing thing in the sky and be
why wouldn't you want
reunited
that?
with all my friends and family. And
Right.
who in their right mind would look at them like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to. Of course not. You know?
But
And
that's
so
why
I think that's why it unites.
But that's why it provides comfort, I think, more than unites, doesn't it? Isn't that's more comforting?
Well, comfort is uniting, right? If we're all comfortable, we're united.
I don't know if it is.
Really? I think it is. I think that if we're all comforted by the same thing, that gives us common ground. That's the definition of common ground, is we all believe in this thing that provides comfort for us. And so we find, safety in that. And then when we communicate, we can, we have that to fall back on.
And I think the unifying part is when you have a code, like a code or a moral code that's all moving in the same direction. And I think what really unifies the religion, to be honest with you, is the opposition, is the fact that there's there's other entities that don't believe in that moral code or seem to be arguing that moral code, and that's what kind of unifies you.
Okay.
I think, for instance, let's take the Jewish people, for instance. There was that unification during that horrible Holocaust period.
Right.
I have to believe that when amongst themselves, they probably felt more unified and more wanting to help another Jew than ever before in time.
I can see that.
So, whereas in a time we're feeling persecuted, then you're going to open your door to them. You're going to let them live in your house. You're going to feed them.
Right.
Whereas when you're not feeling persecuted, it's like, this is my house. Get out.
I can see that.
So I think that troubles, problems, world crisis, but more than anything, opposition, that's what makes religion unifying, I think, is when there's an opposing view.
I think it can, for sure.
I think Muslims, in other countries where the radical Islamists are able to use the attack from the Western world, they try to use that as unifying.
Right.
Right? And they try to get other Muslims to become radical Muslims, right?
Yeah.
So I think similarly here, when people feel like some moral values are being attacked here in the States, whereas, they don't want you to be able to pray in your school, they don't want you to, they want to take it off the dollar bill, blah, blah. They use that as unifying. It says, we need more God, we need more religion. So I think that they use that as a banner.
I think it can be, for sure. There is something to be said that hey, let's circle the wagons. Right. Let's come together and fight this common enemy together.
Right.
I think in that way it can unify.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the case, right? Is both through adversity and through comfort. I think they can, because some people respond to the adversity by saying, "Hey, let's come together and fight," and some respond to comfort by saying, "Hey, we're comforted by the same thing. Let's come together and rejoice in that." And I've seen both, and I wish. I mean, the people we had in here earlier. Right. That was actually what Leon was talking about.
Right.
He was basically saying that when he goes to church, the thing that gave him comfort was in his church, they all kind of believed the same thing, and they were coming together and they're all happy and having a good time. He felt like he was a part of something bigger than himself. Right. He felt he was a part of a community. And I think that right there is what value religion can have. And once again, I got to be very, very specific when I say religion, in the sense that I don't mean... When I say religion, I'm not talking about that dude or that chick, that person that you're thinking of that annoys the hell out of you, that is the problem. I'm not talking about that. That's not religion.
Right.
That's somebody who's taken religion and has interpreted it in a way that is very offensive to other people and divisive.
Right.
That's not... I mean, as much of an atheist as I am, I can still be honest and say, when you read the book, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And let's face it, there's really no difference between with Buddhism, Christianity, all these other religions. They're all kind of the same thing, dude. Yeah. There's different reasons why, but for the most part, their overall structure, if you will, it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Right, and so I think that...
different stories, different beginnings, but
different
same
reasons
end.
why.
Same end.
Yeah, same concept. And so when I say religion, I'm not talking about that twerp that annoys everybody. I'm talking about, there's other words I like to use. But
I know. That was an interesting word you chose.
I'm talking about that to the what religion was meant to be, if you will.
Right.
Loving your neighbor, being kind, just basically not being a dick.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest.
Right.
How could anybody take away and that's the thing about scientists, or non-believers. I think that's the problem that they have, is these fantastical ideas that just seem ludicrous. That's usually the problem they have. I've never met another atheist or even a scientist or whomever that has a problem with the moral code in religion. I've never heard anybody say, no, I want to rape and murder. I've just never heard, other than a rapist and a murderer, right? But they're crazy. Normal, average, everyday people, I don't think they have a problem with the morality of religion.
And our guess, that's what they brought up, is the moral part.
Yeah.
They really stuck their heels or their feet in the concrete right there.
Yeah.
Is where there's a moral compass here, and I think people fear that. Can you speak a little bit on that? I think people fear the absence of a moral compass, like as if people are just gonna. And it kind of seems like, and we've talked about this off the air, that it kind of feels like without a I don't know, a documented or a moral compass that people follow together in a united way, it kind of feels like there'd be chaos in the world.
Yeah, I think that's the great unknown, right? I mean, I think that, I guess to take this in a scientific route, it wasn't that long ago that we were heathen. We were like uncivilized, throwing spears at each other. It wasn't that long ago. People we get so used to society the way it is now. We get so comfortable that it's hard for us to remember that it wasn't but a few hundred years ago that we were running around chucking spears and burning villages and raping, pillaging. Like, it was all chaos. It was happening. Right. And so I think that a good indicator for me, right, was back in Hurricane Katrina. Mm-hmm. Hurricane Katrina happened. The whole world was relatively fine. It was just this one little spot in North America that Hurricane Katrina devastated in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And they were having a hard time getting FEMA to come in and help out. So it was like a few days. And then within that few days, all hell broke loose. Within that few days, cops were breaking into dealerships and stealing Mercedes and stuff. People were taking TV. I mean, they lost their mind.
Right.
And they all knew that the rest of the world was fine. That just this will be over. It'll end at some point.
Yeah, it was like the aftermath.
It was insane that it happened. And I think that was just a very small taste of what could happen, right? It's our civilized natures are very very fragile. And I don't want to say that religion owns the moral code, because I think that you can have a moral code without being religious. Boy, do I think it helps, though.
Well, those seem to be the ones that try to calm down those storms.
Sometimes.
You know, like when those riots were happening, there were pastors and ministers trying to calm people down. I mean, they were trying to use religion to unify people.
Yeah. But on the same token, I don't know why, but the first thought that popped in my head was when me walking downtown sometimes and that dude's on the box yelling, tells us we're all going to hell. That doesn't feel very unifying to me.
Right.
And so I think that it can be used, once again, both ways.
That's the propaganda.
Yeah.
That's a whole different conversation. I think you need to do a show. I'd love to see the Dharma Guy talk about propaganda.
I think that'd be a great show, by the way. Because I was shocked, and I don't want to get too far into this, but I was shocked to find out that, hindsight, not so shocked, but the moment that propaganda for Buddhism even is rampant. It's a very interesting dynamic, but we'll have to get into that.
Yeah, we'll have to call that one "I Can't Hear You."
Yeah, but so I guess making a case for science now, right?
Right. Making a case for science. Like, so how is science, not only unifying but comforting?
Well, I think that I think science provides concrete answers for some people. Mm-hmm. I think it's because it's measurable, because it's reproducible. I think that science provides that sense of comfort. I really do. Like, for me, I'll know that man, that's a good question. I thought I had the answer until you asked it, and I was like, wait a minute.
Right.
Because I do believe that science provides a certain finality, I think. A certain kind of, we know this. This is it. Like, it's settled kind of a thing. And I think that that's comforting. I think the lack of answers sometimes can be uncomforting for some people. Like, for instance, the idea of God or not God. We don't really know.
We might actually have to disagree here.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I just feel that science actually causes more questions.
Okay.
I have more questions related to science than I do religion. Because with religion, there's a faith, right?
It was supposed to be.
So it kind of simplifies it. Whereas with science, there's always new questions. Every time we figure something out, it seems like it opens up a thousand more. For instance, creation.
Okay.
In the world, it's not as simple as the Big Bang, because then you start looking at stars and you start wondering what stars are made of and what causes them to do what they do and what allows them to do what they do. And now we're looking at other planets, and I wonder if there's another planet, and it causes people to go in this alien direction.
See,
right? In searching, and that's why we have these Hubble telescopes, and that's why we have these spacecrafts out there just taking pictures and sending them back down.
Let's sit with that for a second, right? The creation concept.
Okay.
For me, that was one of the things I had a hard time with in religion.
The religion
was
the story.
Well, this idea that
Adam and Eve kind of deal.
Well, no, that
or any entity.
Our concept of time, for instance, like if somebody says, "Well, God created this," well, who created God? Where'd he come? That was always a hard thing for me to wrap my head around. It was hard for me to have faith in that. However, for me personally, in the scientific realm, it's easy for me to say we just don't know. We have theories, but we don't really know. Like, it's easier for me to accept we're searching, we're not really sure.
So you're more but that's what I'm saying. So you're saying you're comforted by more questions.
I can be, yeah.
Because you said, what comforts us is that we know.
First, I know that when it comes to creation, no, we don't know. But science does provide concretes as far as like we know evolution is a fact, right? We don't necessarily. Some people argue if we came from apes or not, but I have comfort knowing like survival of the fittest, things of that nature.
But
that's a proven fact.
But isn't that you stopping at the simple concept of evolution rather than then taking that back further?
Can be, yeah.
Because now it's like, all right, well, where's the evolution somewhere else? Where's evolution before the fish, before the atom, or before that little microorganism? Go before that, though.
We don't know.
But that's my point. So you really don't know.
No.
So in other words, in religion, I think it's much more simplistic, and it gives you. That's why I said I think we have to argue, because I think in religion, it's a known. You ask a religious person, they're not. I don't know. They're I know, and so that offers them comfort. Whereas in science, I think scientists actually love not knowing.
Right.
They love the search of knowing.
Sure. I guess for me, the biggest difference I've noticed, especially with that specific conversation,
Right.
I don't care. Like, I don't care.
Well, that's a whole
where
different
we came
ballgame, isn't it?
Well, and I think there are people for the person that really truly cares about where we came from.
Right.
I could totally see them turn to religion, because you're right. It gives a concrete solution. But I'll use Buddhism as an example, as a way in, like a segue, if you will.
Okay.
At one point, Buddha himself was asked about gods and things of that nature, and he basically just said, "They can't help you with your suffering, so who cares?" He didn't really agree or disagree with the existence or non-existence of. He just said, "They can't help you with your suffering, so who cares? My goal is to help you with your suffering. That's it." And so for me, I don't care about where we came from right now, to be honest with you. I don't think about it every day.
But that is religious.
What is it? What is?
That is religious. I mean, you and I call Buddhism a philosophy, but millions of people call it a religion.
I would be curious to see what their definition of religion is. So they call it religion based upon our definition of it, but I don't know if they.
But if
view
we
it the
listed
same.
the religions, Buddhism is in there.
That doesn't mean we agree with.
I know,
that.
but it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we can agree or disagree. I mean, you and I both agree with each other.
Sure.
But you and I are in opposition to the world on that one, I think, to most of the world. Most of the world. I would say most people out there, if you're going to study religions, Buddhism is in that chapter. Or there's a chapter on Buddhism.
Yeah. It doesn't mean it's a fact just because everybody believes it. So, I mean, I guess I'm just not going to succumb to that, because when you define religion, to me, it doesn't have a deity, it doesn't have a dogma, it doesn't have any of that stuff. You know, I mean, that's like saying, Galileo was a religion. No, he wasn't. He was a dude who had some pretty good ideas.
Yeah, but there's nobody that believes Galileo is a religion.
Touche.
So that's an easy one.
But
so make the case more for science and what unify. Because here's what I'm thinking with unification with science, is that it allows us to know that we're all united as people, that we're actually all together. So when I see scientists, when I hear scientists, they're more thinking, like if they're thinking differences, they're thinking in the realm of, are you a Neanderthal? Are you Caucasoid? Are you Mongoloid?
Right.
Or are you human? Are you a Homo sapien? And therefore, or are you alien? In other words, their opposition is not with what we see around us, not with the other people that we're around, but the people that we don't even know of yet. And that's why they like Star Wars and stuff like that, with all these weird type of animal-looking creatures.
I think going by the strictest definition of unity, right? That's what science does. Is science, once again, doesn't look at it as black, white, Spanish, what our belief, we're all humans.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a bigger unification, actually.
Yeah, it's
a larger group of people.
To me, it's the ultimate unification. We're all the same. I don't care where you're from or whatever. We all bleed the same. We're all red inside, kind of a thing.
That's my point.
Yeah, and I think that is the ultimate definition of unification.
Right.
I think also that another way science helps with unification is the science of like the mental stuff, right? The mental sciences, how to treat one another, realizing that we're all suffering, we're all in pain, we're all dealing with it differently. I know for me, it's easier to. It's easier for me to deal with somebody who's in pain, who's lashing out, than somebody who is, spouting out a dogma and unwilling to listen to things. For me, it's easier for me to wrap my head around the fact that this person's struggling with some stuff and they're lashing out than it is to that. Which, I mean, I do both, but I'm better at it now in my life than I was. And so I think the mental sciences help us understand things, and when you understand, it's easier to be united. It's hard to be mad at somebody whose story you know.
I think the science in that So there's no argument whether both religion also believes that pain exists and suffering exists, but the actual science of that is maybe a diagnosis that a person actually has maybe a mental health illness, or it's something diagnosable. In other words, going with science, like we have a question, we have a theory, like
right.
Freud had theories. The fathers of psychology did have theories, and then through time we did studies and research, so that now we can put people, because science loves to put people in boxes.
Well, they love classifications.
Yeah, they love to call people X, Y, and Z for the sake of conversations.
Yeah.
I mean, they name stars that don't have real names.
Exactly.
They have some number, right? That's why you can buy a star.
That's my favorite one. I bought you a star.
Yeah. So okay. In other words, we like to name everything. There's everything has a number before it actually has a name. The more personal it becomes, or the more we know of it, then it becomes an actual name. For instance, a storm before it becomes personal to us is just a number.
Right.
And then as soon as it becomes a little bit more personal, like this can actually hurt you and kill you, now then we're going to call you Mary.
Well, and
you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. And I think the other way in which science can unite is the medical aspect of things. I think that very few people I know who are either religious or not wouldn't go to the doctor for antibiotics and things of that nature. And I think that alone unifies us too. Is because there's a lot of people who are very religious, but they also believe in the science of, hey, I'm sick, I'm gonna go to the doctor and get an antibiotic, and that's science. That's what got us to that point. Some could argue that it was, and my wife brought this point up actually, was God puts my wife is not religious by any means, or atheist or whatever. She's got her own thing, but we talked about it, and she said one of the arguments could be made is that God put these natural substances on earth, but it was science that allowed us to utilize those substances in a way to heal, which I thought was very interesting. Like antibiotics, we're not out there eating plants, but we're extracting that stuff from the plants and creating stuff for us to take. And so I think that would lead us to our last quarter, which
before you do that, I think what I think I hear you saying, and just can you correct me if I'm wrong,
sure.
but I think what I hear you saying is in science, it allows a human to help a human more than only a deity or only a God can help a human, that humans can help humans.
Yeah.
I think that's what absolutely. I heard you saying. I think that makes it a little bit more in your face, a little bit more, I'm more empowered, I guess. I think what I'm hearing is that science empowers you.
It can.
To be a healer. So it's not only God is the healer, or not only does God have answers, but a human can have answers, and a human can be a healing, and a human can save a life. It's not only, I prayed about it, and that's why my life was saved. Like cancer removed, my cancer was removed because of God and my prayers. Well, there's a lot of people that prayed and the cancer was not removed. There's a lot of people that prayed and the disease did not go away.
Right.
Your mother still died. You know what I mean? Whereas in science, it allows a human to actually get that credit.
Sure.
Even though that human may say, my gift of being able to heal people comes from my higher power. Right? Is that what you're saying? That intermediary?
Not quite like that, but yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
it's more than just a priest, in other words, and more than just a reverend. It's also a normal, everyday person that gets educated enough to use the applied sciences or use the health sciences to help.
Not only that, but the other uniting factor is the need for it.
Right.
We all get sick, and we all need something, and so I think that's even in third world countries, right now in was it Venezuela? Mm-hmm. One of their biggest arguments, or one of their biggest complaints, and all this rioting that's happening, is lack of access to medicine.
Right.
That's a need that they have,
right.
and I think that's the science of medicine that heals people is a need that we all have. We're all united by that. So we all deal with ailments. We all get old. We all age. We all have injuries that need some sort of medicine to help us.
So it's almost like science is the mastery of God-given gifts. So in other words, if God gave the land, then humans mastered it on how to make that food and sustenance.
It could be defined that way, yes. That's how a religious person could wrap their heads around it and
accept science.
Yes,
yeah.
I think that's how it could be accepted.
Cool.
Which is kind of what I think that you and I both...
So merge it all together for us.
That's what you and I agree on.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we were trying to both get to at the end of it, is I think we both agree that there's a need for both. I don't think it's one or the other. And there's a lot of people who responded to my poll who put up here who kind of brought that up, was saying it's both. And obviously it makes for a better poll with a 2-answer thing. But at the end of the day, it's got to be both, man. It can't be one or the other. If you're too religious, then you're going to ignore the benefits of science. You're going to ignore the progress that science has given us. And if you're too into science, then you're going to ignore the benefits and the what hope and everything else can be provided by religion. Like the comfort of knowing that you're going to be taken care of in an afterlife and things of that nature. You can't ignore that. I mean, that's the science too, as a matter of fact. And so there has to be a merging of the two. And I think that's where the work comes in. I think we've spent so much time perfecting religion and perfecting science in our own ways that I don't think either one of those need help anymore. I think where the help comes into play is how do we balance the two? And I think that's where I see a lot of people struggle the most. And that is, even I've done it on the opposite end, but I've struggled with it. And a lot of people I know, a lot of those conversations I got into is what made me struggle with it, to be honest with you. Because what I've noticed is because they get so stagnant in their own, or so obstinate in their own approach. So I'll start with the religious aspect. A lot of times when you get so kind of wrapped into religion, that's the only answer, then somebody coming in preaching scientific things, it can offend you and it can make you shut down. It can make you start to draw lines and back up. And I don't like the idea of lines, period. Because if you draw a line, then you're forced to maintain that line, even if you agree or disagree. You've already drawn the line, so now you have to back it up. So I think that a lot of times, especially when it comes to like proving things, if you're a religious individual and you're trying to have a legitimate, logical conversation with somebody, it's going to be a very difficult conversation for you because faith in and of itself is illogical. And if that's what you're relying on, it's going to be a really short argument, and somebody's going to get offended. And I've seen a lot of people also in that same conversation not really question a lot. And when somebody brings in science to the equation, if they're not used to it, it makes them ask questions they're not comfortable with. And then they start kind of getting freaked out about it. And so I think that and the same thing with science, right? Because the science, we get, we in the scientific community, they like to have answers. They like to have concrete proof. But when you ask questions like, where did this come from? And they don't really know, it makes them uncomfortable too. It makes them feel like they have to have an answer, or they can't just rely on the fact of supernatural whatever happened. And so I think that where the balance comes into play is learning how to not be so into your way of thinking that you refuse to listen to another one, that you refuse to be pliable, and flexible to that. Maybe one of the answers for like a religious individual is maybe you don't take the religion that you're practicing as concrete and literal. Maybe you think it more metaphorical. For instance, the Bible, when some of that stuff came around, maybe it wasn't meant to be taken literally. Maybe the way we interpret it in 2018 is different than how it was intended. I mean, we do that all the time, right? With like the Second Amendment. People always say the spirit of the amendment. Well, maybe it was the spirit of the Bible. Maybe, if you're religious, maybe God didn't actually turn someone into a pillar of salt. Maybe he yelled at him or something. Maybe something else happened, but that's how they interpreted it to get their point across. Kind of like in Greek mythology, how Icarus, flew too close to the sun. It was just a metaphor of, hey, listen to your parents, kind of a thing. So instead of trying to preach it as if it's the end all be all and the only truth, just realize that there's different versions of it, but it's all leading to the same thing, right? And for science, you don't get so stagnant, so set on proof that you forget that science changes constantly. There is old science that is horrible today. That's been completely disproven over and over and over. And so the science that we believe in today, 10 to 15 years from now, you might feel like an idiot. It might completely change in 10 to 15 years. We might learn more things. And so you have to realize that science isn't the answer, it's a answer.
So that is exactly what I was thinking, is that several times you said that science was proof, or the scientists love having answers. And
data, I would call it that. But.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot of data. But I think they're the ones that have constantly disproved themselves. They're the ones that not only argue with each other, but they constantly show each other how they're wrong.
Right.
How it could be manipulated by the hypothesis. It could be manipulated by what you're looking to find. Whereas I think, again, going back to the comfort of the people that are listening to your program and find comfort in listening to you and in learning more about themselves and in whatever problems they're dealing with and how to use this as an application, is that whichever one is really going to give you that comfort, like you just said, but just understand that arguing is never going to give you that comfort.
No.
And not knowing has to become okay.
Yeah.
The not knowing just has to become okay. Like in science, I think there's so much we do not know.
Yes.
And there's so much, like one day a carrot is good, the next day a carrot is bad. One day broccoli is good, one day broccoli is bad. And the reason I say that is because also within science are all these little diseases and all these little problems that foods can have, like, E. coli and all these little things that can sneak in.
Right.
So there's never a constant. The real only constant is 2 + 2 does equal 4. There are some basic constants, like math.
Right.
The mathematical part of science.
The Fibonacci sequence?
That's actually real. That's true. That's constant.
Right.
Other than that, the human application of all the other sciences, which to me, to be honest with you, I think religion is a science. I think
Sure.
it should have been included as a science a long time ago. I think it's a part of a science that's the abstract,
Right.
the real abstract science that, there's physical sciences, but there's also other types of sciences, right? There's applied
there's tons of
sciences,
them,
and there's, so I think religion should have had its own little segment of science, much like psychology is a science. I think religion is one. And therefore, it would allow us to keep, instead of arguing, I do agree that science unites us more. I think that on the bigger level, it unites us more. But people they feel comfort in smaller groups, much like
Right.
you feel comfortable in a smaller room. It's closer to a hug.
Right.
The bigger the room, the less comfortable you feel. Like, have you ever tried to sleep in an airport or a bus station?
No. I don't think I've even been in a bus station, to be honest
Okay, but
with
in
you.
an airport. Have you ever tried to
Right.
sleep in an airport? It's too big.
No. Well, I don't like sleeping around
But it doesn't feel
strangers.
comfortable.
No.
But you close that room up to a cubicle,
Hey, Vicky.
and all of a sudden you can feel comfort.
Well,
And I think that's what religion does, is what I'm saying.
And while you were talking, I thought of a few kind of examples, right, of how they can come together,
Okay.
right? We'll take the first and most obvious one. My show is on spirituality,
Correct.
which some people can refer to as a religion, with
Yeah.
Buddhism.
Yeah.
And yet it's science that it's allowing us to talk to everybody at the moment.
Yeah.
It's science that's allowing us to broadcast it to people.
Correct.
And so the science is allowing us to deliver the message, which is bringing people together. So that without either one of those, without science, nobody would hear us at the
They
moment.
coexist.
Without religion or spirituality, I wouldn't have anything to say to them.
Correct.
And the other half of that, I would say, is you and I both get a lot of messages, a lot of phone calls, some not so great, with what we do, but we do get a lot of great ones. We get a lot of great phone calls, emails, text messages of people who feel that we were somehow able to play a role in their life that benefited them and help kind of turn things around.
Right.
and I've had individuals reach out to me, especially lately, who were in a bad spot not too long ago.
Right.
And talking to them recently are in a great spot now,
Yeah.
and doing and moving forward and progressing very well. And and they talk to me and they say, hey, some of the stuff that you said kind of helped and gave me a new way of thinking about things. And so the spiritual or even religious component of that is the actual message that was delivered, is the thought process that was delivered. But it was the science of how to speak to people. It was the science of knowing, like, motivational interviewing, things of that nature. It was the science of all that stuff that allowed me to apply it in a way that it spoke to them. And so that's another example of how they merge together, and you use one to complement the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't call it religion. I would call it spirituality, because religion to me is an off-putting word for some people. And so I think that the idea of a power greater than yourself, the idea of something bigger than you, the idea of a purpose, if you will, because I was a young lady that was in here earlier, I guess Reese, I think she hit it on the head, was science talks about, the what, but the why is what religion touches into, like the purpose of things. And at the end of the day, I think that a lot of us want a purpose.
I think purpose is necessary.
I think we have to have a purpose. I think we have to have a calling, if you will.
Right.
And knowing your purpose and having that calling provides a certain amount of peace that science is never going to deliver. And so I think that there is a role for both, and I think that that's where the answer lies. I really do.
Right.
I think that in society, I think that you're not going to convince me that having the moral compass or the the behavior pattern that's portrayed in religions is going to be a bad thing for society. I mean, come on. I don't know of anybody that can argue that.
Well, that's why I think that if you change the word from religion to faith, then it includes more people.
Yeah.
And when you simplify it a little bit more to spirituality,
right,
and use those words, spirituality and faith, it includes everyone.
Yeah.
It's all inclusive.
Yep.
Just like if you consider religion itself a science, or faith a science, or spirituality a science, it's just all inclusive. I think we just love to argue. I think we just love to be in conflict.
Yeah.
I think there's a part of us that just simply enjoys being different than.
Yeah.
Just as equal as I think there's a part of us that likes to be similar to. I think we have a similar to. I think there is the yin and yang probably has it best.
Yeah, man.
Explained in that simple little picture.
And I'm of course biased. And that's where that's where the spirituality comes out. Is I think that a lot of the angst that's out there in today's world is because I think there's a lot of people struggling with just their demons. There's a lot of people struggling with pain that don't know what to do with it, and they're looking outside themselves.
I agree.
And I think that's where the spiritual role comes into play. I think if people were to find a more spiritual path for themselves to follow, I really truly believe a lot of the issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis would dissipate rather quickly, mind you.
Oh, I agree with you, and I would even go further with it and just saying if you just look within instead of without, I think you'll find a hell of a lot more peace.
Yeah, man.
Than what's happening right now for you, because the world has always been in conflict. The world has always had issues. The world has always been upside down. There's always been chaos.
It's always going to be.
To be honest with you, I think we're a lot more peaceful now than we have been in other times of life. Does it go a little bit up and a little bit down? Yes, but in the main swing of things, I think it's like a mutual fund. It's still rising. We're still not having the dark days of the dark ages.
Look at you using that 1% language, man.
When I do
mutual funds, man, I like it.
Oh well, I'm just saying
that's that 1% language.
You really? Okay, not the 1%er biker, but the 1%er. Yeah. But the point is that there is a constant up that we're going,
right?
And it's always darker before the dawn. And I got a good feeling that everything that's happening right now is still moving in a really good direction. Now,
I agree.
You and I. I guess what we didn't say today and what we did not touch on today that we can always touch on in a later Dharma time is, are things meant to be, or are they, do they happen for a reason, or do you have to apply reason? And I think that's one of the beliefs that I have is that I don't think that things happen for a reason, but I think that it's important to apply reason to everything that happens. And by applying reason, I take ownership of it, and therefore I take ownership of how to heal me.
Right.
By using the healing people that are outside of me.
Right.
In other words, it's not just within me, but I have to focus on within me to find those outside of me that can help me. But I can only fix me, and it's just like the serenity prayer. And so that I think those things are important.
Right on.
So what are your top three things? Because tell us what.
Yeah, I think
what is our takeaway from this?
I think it's time to start wrapping up, man. I think that. As we look at life and look at what's going on, I think it's important for us to try to find that balance, try to find for ourselves what that looks like. And I think that to get into my little 3 tips here that I do every week, I think the first one is you got to find your path, whatever that path might be. Maybe it's 50-50 spirituality and science. Maybe it's 60-40, maybe it's 70-30, who knows? But you got to find that path that speaks to you, that makes you feel fulfilled, that gives you that peace that you're looking for. So that's the first one. Is you got to find your path, whatever that might be, and only you know what that path is, and you'll know it when you find it. And the second one I have here is, no matter what your path is, you got to respect the fact that other people are going to have their own path. You got to respect the fact that not everybody's going to have the same perspective you have, not everybody's going to have the same truth that you do, but that doesn't mean you can't coexist with one another. You allow, in Buddhism we call it equanimity. You allow people to be on the path that they're at. You let them be where they're at. Just like in your life, you're not the same place you were at 5-10 years ago. Neither will they be, and neither will you be from 10 years from now. So you have to find your path, and you have to allow others to have their own path as well. And then the third tip I have here is you got to be open to variations on your path. Meaning, just because you think you found the path doesn't mean that that path is going to look the same down the road, and nor should it. You know, as new data comes out, as new experiences happen, as wisdom and insight develops within you, your path should reflect that. In other words, your way of going about things should change and evolve with you. And so I think it's important to allow that to take place naturally, as opposed to fighting it. Because when you start to fight it, that's when life is going to make you learn it. Life is going to start putting things in front of you that's going to make you learn that lesson, whether you want to or not. And so the 3 tips, once again, you got to find your path, whatever it might be. You got to allow other people to have their path. And then you also have to leave room for variations within your path, as opposed to making it concrete. So now that we're at the end, we got to thank some sponsors real quick, man. We have the first sponsor I'm going to thank is Retreat Premier Addiction Treatment Centers. Fantastic place. They got a show on our network called Recovery Radio. Matter of fact, it comes up right after this one. Make sure you tune in. Steve Moderano was a great interviewer. Then you have Orange County, a big supporter of us. They do a lot of things for our foundation, which is our next sponsor, is Now Matters More. NowMattersMore.org. Feel free to go check us out. We always love to donate. And if you're on Facebook, give us your birthday, man. Please. I appreciate it. And then
833 Now Matters.
833 Now Matters. That's right. We got our phone. If you're watching NASCAR, man, this June 8th, we're going to be on the race on Corbin Forrester's Toyota Tundra truck.
Number 7.
Love it.
He's going to win the race. Texas. That's my prediction.
And then lastly, I'm going to thank Journey Beer. And the reason why I saved them for last is because finally I will be up at the river this weekend. They're going to have me come out there and do what I do, try to do some Dharma Time type stuff for their people up in Tennessee. So I'm looking forward to heading up there. And I come back on Tuesday, and hopefully I'll be back in time to make it here to do a live show on Tuesday. So we'll have to keep posted on that one. So anything else you want to add before we wrap this up completely?
No, I think you did it.
Right on, man. Well, now that you know better, do better. Till next time, see you.
I think he plans it all out. Just makes it up as he goes along.
Human knowledge belongs to the world.